It was already late. Outside the window, thick, sticky darkness reigned, occasionally pierced by the distant headlights of passing cars. My parents had left for another city to visit relatives for a couple of days, so I was home alone. A strange mix of freedom and a faint sense of unease lingered in the air. I decided to take a shower before settling down with my laptop to watch a movie. I grabbed my phone to play some music and stepped into the bathroom. The hot water rushed over me, and after about 15 minutes, I felt the day's tension melting away. The heat was soothing, pure bliss, and then the lights went out. The entire house was swallowed by thick, suffocating darkness. I cursed under my breath, annoyed and a little on edge. "Seriously?" I muttered. I quickly toweled off and made my way to the room, feeling along the walls. I found the drawer with the first aid kit, pulled out some matches, and lit a short, thick candle. The dim flame cast flickering shadows across the walls. The whole house seemed to hold its breath. Back in the bathroom, I stepped under the still-running shower. Music was playing softly in my headphones, some chill track from a playlist. But suddenly, the music stopped. My phone rang. The ringtone was loud, jarring, and way too sharp in the silence. I froze. Who would call me this late? Without turning off the water, I stepped out, grabbed the phone, and answered without even checking the screen. "Hello?" There was a deep, guttural static on the other end. Not quite a voice, just a long, distorted hiss, like someone breathing heavily into the mic from deep in the dark. Chills shot down my spine. I pulled the phone away and looked at the caller ID. My heart nearly stopped. It was calling from my home phone, the landline in the hallway, the one we hadn't used in months. No one touched it, ever. I staggered back in terror, slipped on the wet floor, and hit the tile hard. My head bounced against the ground. Pain exploded behind my eyes and everything spun. I forced myself to my feet, gripping the wall. The fear made the pain irrelevant. I stumbled to the door, slammed it shut, and locked it. My heart pounded somewhere up in my throat. I was shaking. I crouched in the tub, curled up, just waiting. For what? I didn't know. Maybe for morning, maybe for sense. The candle's flame flickered wildly, shadows twitching across the walls, and then I noticed something on the mirror. At first, I thought it was just steam, but then I saw them. Handprints. Clear, distinct, as if someone had pressed their hands from the inside. I froze in the tub, unable to look away. More prints appeared. 1, 2, 3, dozens, crawling across the glass. Then a crack. One, then another, a third, and then, with a violent crash, the mirror shattered into hundreds of jagged pieces. I jumped to my feet. The door was still locked. I took a step, and then a deep, slow inhale, heavy and rasping, echoed right in front of me. Someone was in the bathroom, right now, close. I couldn't see them, but I felt them. A suffocating, hungry presence pressing in from all sides. I screamed, bolted for the door, and flung it open, stepping barefoot onto the broken glass. I barely felt the pain. I grabbed my robe, threw it on while running, and burst onto the stairwell, banging on the neighbor's door. They opened, clearly irritated, but when they saw my face and the blood, they let me in without a word. I ran inside like a wounded animal, dragging blood across their floor. The neighbor helped bandage my feet and kept asking questions, but I couldn't speak. I just sat there shaking. Back in the bathroom in the shattered mirror, those hands kept reflecting, long after I left. Almost a week had passed since that night. I still couldn't sleep normally. In every reflection, I felt like something was watching. Every little sound, like it was calling me back to the bathroom. My parents came back 2 days later. I told them part of the story, the blackout, the fall, the fear. I left out the rest. They wouldn't have believed me, and honestly, I started wondering if I'd imagined it myself. Maybe it was a hallucination from the head injury, or a panic attack. I nearly convinced myself, nearly, but they never replaced the mirror. "Just hang a towel over it for now," Dad said. "We'll fix it later." So the towel stayed there, covering the frame, but I could feel it. Not emptiness, a presence. Watching, like the mirror hadn't gone anywhere, it had just hidden. On the 6th day after that night, it started again. I was lying in my room, music playing in my headphones. Rain poured outside. The wind scratched at the windows like fingernails. Then the music cut out. The phone rang, not my cell. The landline, the same one. It hadn't rung in years, and it was supposed to be disconnected. I froze. The ringing continued. Once, twice, 3 times. I slowly left my room, walking toward the hallway. The ringing seemed quieter now, or maybe I was approaching it too fast. I reached for the receiver, and the ringing stopped. Silence. Then the handset lifted off the base all on its own, as if someone had picked it up on the other end. And then I heard it, a whisper, barely audible, more breath than words. "You thought it was over?" I yanked my hand back like I'd touched fire. The phone dangled from the cord, slowly swaying, creaking, and that's when I realized I wasn't alone in the house. I sprinted back to my room, slammed the door, shoved the desk against it, and backed into the corner. My hands shook as I turned on my phone's flashlight. The beam flickered. My heart was thudding so hard it hurt. Maybe 20 minutes passed. I started thinking it was a glitch again, just static, a false alarm. And then I heard floorboards creak in the hallway. Someone was walking, slowly, unevenly, as if barefoot, dragging one foot behind. Step, creak, pause, step, then silence, right outside my door. Nothing. Then knock, 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 soft, deliberate. "Open up," came a whisper from the other side. "I can see you." The flashlight went out. My phone powered down, on its own. Darkness, and in that pitch-black silence, one person was breathing, but in the room, there were 2. I woke up the next morning. Sunlight filtered through the curtains. Birds chirped outside. Everything seemed normal again. I was lying on the floor by the wall. My phone was dead beside me. My arm throbbed. I must have hit it when I fell, but the door was open. Even though I know I blocked it with the desk, now it was pushed aside, neatly moved, not forced open. Everything in the house was in its place. No signs of a break-in, no strange marks, nothing to prove what happened. Except for one tiny, awful detail. On the carpet, right across from my door, was a wet piece of fabric. I stepped closer. It was my robe, the same one I wore when I ran to the neighbors that first night, soaking wet, like someone had just stepped out of the shower. I didn't tell my parents anything more. Just said I wasn't feeling well and wanted to go stay with Grandma for a couple weeks. They didn't argue. It's been 3 months. I never went back to that apartment. My parents send me photos. They say everything's fine. I'm starting to forget. But a few nights ago, I got a voice message from an unknown number, static, that same sound, and a faint, trembling whisper. You promised you'd come back. Now I keep the mirror in my room covered, just in case. Sometimes when I pass it, I catch something that shouldn't be there. Not a reflection, a presence. Because it was never just the house. It followed me.